This discussion on reinventing content for the digital first age features Steve Crombie, Nadia Tolich, and moderator Natalie Apostolou. It was recorded live at the 2025 Spada Conference.
So today we have Steve Crombie, who is the CEO and founder of Totem Global, which is revolutionising content, I will say modestly. And we have Nadia Tolich, who is the chief, the very freshly minted chief content officer at TVNZ. And if we could have you on the stage, that would be wonderful. So we're playing things a little bit differently. Steve's got a mind-blowing presentation that he's about to deliver. But first off, when I was researching these two guys, who are exceptional and really at the cutting edge of, I want to say the future, but the future is now. We're already there, we're immersed in it. Digital has taken over everything. It's just now about how to leverage audiences and strategy, and these guys are the whisperers for this. And what is in common with both of them is they both came from deeply content-driven backgrounds, which were their passions. And I wanted them to just quickly give us their wildly divergent origin stories because they're very interesting. Steve, let's start with you.
Sure. Origin story. To be honest, I think I first started filling up with content due to all the National Geographic magazines outside my bedroom door as a kid. When I left school, I joined a circus in Western Australia and was just always obsessed with travel and adventure stories. Probably also the movie The Mission by Robert De Niro. Very great reason to go to South America and do various things there. But ultimately, I think it's just the art of storytelling and the different methodologies you can employ in order to tell stories and the extraordinary ways that now exist in this environment that you can tell stories and how you can galvanize, I guess, the capabilities in this room to go direct to audience. I mean, that's what I'm most excited about today. Definitely, historically, my motivation to be here was I used to have to stand behind gatekeepers who had access to those audiences, and that became a very frustrating experience. So I had to identify ways to go around those gatekeepers in order to connect with those audiences and build different businesses and models. And off the back of that, now empowered to tell whatever story I want. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Brilliant. Nadia, you're deeply immersed from journalism, radio, print, now television and digital. Tell us about that.
All the things,
yes.
You don't judge me. Yes, short attention span, no, just joking. Kia ora everybody, my name is Nadia. This is a caveat actually. I am the Chief News and Content Officer at TVNZ. I am 7 weeks into this role. So this feels like a giant test in front of a lot of people about what I know about my new employer. So that's really fun. So my origin story is quite similar. I literally wanted to be Judy Bailey, for those of you who know who she is, because she's legendary. But when I was growing up, that's all I wanted to be, was Judy Bailey. And then April Idemia. That's all I wanted to be, a journalist. So these were incredible female broadcasters on television New Zealand, actually. And I knew that journalism was where I wanted to be. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to know all the things, and share those stories with New Zealand, really. So yeah, I ended up in radio. I learned a lot about audiences in radio and connecting directly with audiences, and then started developing and working with talent. So have worked with many amazing New Zealand broadcasters, from Paul Holmes, Paul Henry, Mike Hosking. Well, this is like, their talent is incredible. Whether you like them or not is probably another question. I do get hit up quite a lot. But more recently, Samantha Hayes, Simon Dallow, Melissa Stokes, Jack Tate, lots and lots of incredible talent. So that's sort of my new passion, is bringing together incredible teams, developing incredible talent and delivering for New Zealand and contributing, to be honest.
Beautiful stuff. And you've already passed. It's okay.
Thanks.
Okay, without further ado, Steve, please take it away.
All right. Walk over here to get the clicker. All right, hello everybody. Thank you very much for having me here. It's a great pleasure to be in New Zealand. I actually first started working out here when YouTube launched out here. Our company Totem helped them launch in around 2014, so I got to travel across the country and really understand the media landscape out here. Off the back of that, was able to work with Sky TV to help develop their global digital strategy over a decade ago, and also got to work with the wonderful humans at Whitebait. Janine and the team, they are the most extraordinary people I've really probably ever met, who actually end up putting me up in their house within the first week of meeting them. Love those guys a lot. And so, a little bit more about Totem so you understand where we come from. Totem, we're an audience-first media company. So what we basically do is we design and pioneer new models to help rapidly accelerate audience growth and monetization across for platforms, for media companies, legacy media and other, and also for creators. And what we do, we actually have multiple times generated #1 leaders in their category in different areas, and brought about some significant change. The way we came into this space, YouTube actually, we grew a lot of channels very quickly on YouTube, and YouTube said no one else is doing that as fast as you are outside the US. Can you help us expand across APAC? And that's when Totem was born. And that person was the now CTO and CPO of Disney globally, Adam Smith, who we still work with today. So it's a very exciting time to be here. One of the things that's really interesting about this space, I guess for everyone here, is that you're all here to work out how to navigate what's happening in the future of our industry. And there's a lot of people who are trying to work out what happens next. And so what we're going to be talking about is what's going on broadly in the broader industry. Also going to be just checking in with you around making sure we're aligned around what our challenges are, and then presenting to you 5 different case studies and examples and business models you can actually apply on Monday in order to get started and bring about change within your industry and help accelerate what you do well. So, we've spent 15 years doing global consulting, platform partnerships, and creator acceleration for various organizations around the world. And so we can both design and operate these models in different industries. We've done this across 4 continents. Our team is in 12 different countries, and we love what we do. So we're fortunate, for example, with YouTube, we've helped build business models around their creators. They paid us to do that. With Snapchat, we designed a global creator accelerator program and implement that for them to rapidly scale creators. With TikTok, we're their internal social agency. So for example, when they launched STEM, we designed the model to help launch that STEM program, and our model was then rolled out worldwide because it was the most successful model. With creators, we work with a lot of the biggest creators in the world, such as Jessa, who is the #1 basketball creator in the world. He would be one of the top 10 sports businesses in the world today. He has more viewership over the last 12 months than the NBA. And then, of course, with legacy media, so from networks, free-to-air, pay TV, distribution, music labels, we've designed models for these people too. It's a very fun space. And so we did this for a decade, and over this decade, we designed a lot of different models, from starting off doing their strategy and then helping them implement that strategy by creating that content. And then a lot of these organizations across APAC, for example, which were all multi-billion-dollar entities, didn't know how to integrate these models into their parent entities. So we ended up becoming hyper-specialized in designing direct-to-consumer business models for the media and entertainment space. And then, but what one of the challenges was, at the top of these organizations, a lot of people were unsure about what would happen next. And so we would design models that might have been worth $10 to $100 million, and they wouldn't implement those models. So we decided instead to put our money where our mouth is and build out those models. So alongside our consulting business and our next-gen distribution business and digital rights business, we built out our own owned and operated network. And so over the last 5 years, we've generated 50 billion views, generated 150 million followers, made 15,000 videos internally, and generated 6 trillion minutes of watch time. So this gives us a very different understanding of the landscape and rapidly testing, iterating, and learning around what works and how to apply that in this environment across multiple areas. So one of the unique things about, am I going too quickly? No. Sweet. Okay, so one of the unique positions that we have in this market is over the last 15 years, we have sat directly in this middle point between platforms. We know what they want to do next because we help them decide what to do next. With creators, because we help design business models around them and how they accelerate change, and with legacy media and content creators. So, and understanding how these three different worlds intersect, because they all speak very different languages. And within this center point, there is an extraordinary number of business models that can be created at this moment in time that has leveled the playing field. And it's a very exciting time, I believe, to be alive in the media space. And I believe the next year will be the most significant year over the last 10 or even 20 years in our space. So now is very much the time to make a change and decide what you're going to do next and how. As you can see, a bunch of different organizations we've worked with for context. So, if YouTube is the new broadcast, what does the producer do on Monday? All right, that's what we're going to be going through, pondering. I don't know, who knows? Let's see. So first of all, the quick question is YouTube the biggest broadcaster in the world? Who believes that's true? If you do, put your hand up. In case if your hand's down, you work for a network, I guess. Not sure. Joking. Sorry. So what is true about YouTube is they don't suffer issues around fragmentation, right? They have spent 20 years perfecting their craft. They have an extraordinary technology, right? They've had the best ad tech system. They are diversified. You can watch their content on any device, anytime. You have extraordinary data to understand what your audience wants, okay? So what we do know, they are the best platform to scale your business. They are the engine room of many of the fastest growing media companies in the world. This is a fact. Is every person in this room navigating disruption in their industry? If you are, put your hands up. Okay, put your hands down. If you didn't put your hands up now. Scaredy cats. So look, what's true is there's a lot of disruption going on right now, and that comes to the operational structures of your organization, the culture of your business, your understanding of who your audience is, of how you fund content, of where that money comes from, of what these new models of content creation are and how to go about doing those things. Because in this new world order, you have to work out how to adapt, because this is not going to go away. This is the future, right? But this world does align with traditional media. It does align with a bunch of TVNZ and other partners. It's very much a partnership, but you have to understand what to do. So what you do need is the right operational model, on YouTube or social media to accelerate your growth. You require an operational model. You need to understand what you're going to do. And I'm sure a lot of people in this room are like, but I don't know what to do yet. And that's a really hard thing to do. What you don't want to do is do nothing, right? You have to do something. You have to go about that quickly. You have to understand what that is you're going to do, what your unique capabilities are, and how you're going to go to market, okay? And I can talk about that later on. Don't worry, I'm going to share some examples with you. Cool. So how do I work with YouTube and social media? This is a common question. I'm sure you all hear a lot of people saying, hey, I know about YouTube. I'll help. It's like, awesome. Or do I just upload my video and it's going to be successful and that's great? Does that or doesn't that work? Is YouTube a friend? Are they an enemy? Are they complementary to the business? Are they going to kill my business? I'm sure this sound like common things you think about. Yeah, right. And then, do I do it myself? Do I do it internally? Do I do it externally? How do I go about this? So one of the greatest things about YouTube is any single person in this room, you can become a global leader in your category within 12 months. And I can show that to you and prove that to you because we've done it. And we are a bootstrap business. We are a profitable business. We have no outside investment. We did it by making lots of mistakes and doing it again and testing, learning, iterating, creating 15,000 videos to understand exactly how different content performs in different environments. And there is nothing you cannot do in this space, right? So any person in this room who's struggling, you have to lean in. You have to understand what's going on because it's not going to change. Another part, just going back there, oops, how do I go back? Is there is no one-size-fits-all approach, okay? So someone might say to you, oh, it's really easy. You've got to upload 3 times a week at this time on this platform. It worked for me, it's going to work for you. That's also not true. There is no one-size-fits-all, right? You need to understand how old your audience is, where they are, what they like doing for a living, what time of the day, what day of the week they want to engage, what triggers their enthusiasm, what drives watch time, what drives engagement, what drives retention. You don't want to do this just to drive awareness, but you can. You don't want to do this just to drive revenue, but you can. You want to do this to basically build an audience that is so passionate and enthusiastic about what you are giving to them that they want to participate you in the real world, that you can move these businesses outside just the consumption of content and into other areas, whether that's to events, whether that's to sell a product, whether that's to drive back to a platform. You also want to think about that in the future as well, not just about the content you're making, because you need to diversify your revenue streams as well. You're not going to survive just on ad revenue and funding to make your next show. Okay, so where the fuck do I start? Common question, anyone? Anyone gone through your head recently? Nobody's gone through nobody's. Oh, there you go, thank you for being honest. So this is obviously a hard thing to work out, right? So what you need to do, you need to start with your audience. You need to understand who your audience is. One of the hardest things, I guess, about approaching it from a traditional standpoint is the lack of data you get, right? So, you hear back from your broadcaster and say, yeah, no, it went really well. Good on you, that's good. So, okay, yeah, we'll do it again. I think we will. Yeah, we will. Cool. A fast platform, if anyone has fast here, the data you get back sucks, right? It's very hard to read and understand what your audience wants. YouTube is extremely good at that. They have great data. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they also have great data, but YouTube's is definitely the best. This helps you understand your audience and what they want. You will not do that unless you test, learn, and iterate in this space. You have to do this, right? And so you can spend a year or 2 years creating a great idea, but if it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't get funded, you've just wasted 1 or 2 years of your life. There are other ways to work in parallel and test and learn on this platform. But of course, the hard thing is, you do it alone? Do you do it with someone else? Do you form a group? All the things you've got to work out. So how do I know if I'm on the right track? So if you're on the right track, it's very simple. You need a long-term plan. If you're thinking short-term, thinking about what's going to happen next year or the year after, you are not going to succeed, because the next year or two, everything's going to change. You're going to have a job or you're not. You need to be thinking about what's going to happen in the next 5 years, and you need to prepare for that. You need to think what's going to happen if it's just you and your audience and these platforms, and that's your whole world, because that's a possibility. But with that world comes an extraordinary amount of opportunity if you know how to go about that. So, we'll look at 5 different business models to help scale your media business. If you're a creator, if you're a brand, if you're an agency, if you're a network, if you're a distributor, if you're a producer, this will apply to you, right? There's a different model for every person. It's not just about, I'm going to put it on YouTube, I'm going to generate some extra ad revenue, it's going to be great. There are so many different ways to go about this space, and you want to think about how you are going to go about it and what makes the most sense to you. 1, you can use it to drive awareness. That can be very powerful, which we'll talk about shortly. 2, you can use it to reinvent legacy IP, right? You can bring something back from the dead and extend the life of that IP by many years, right? You've got a lot of value in your back catalogue. And what's very unique about this country is how your content is commissioned. Typically, from my understanding, you typically have global rights outside New Zealand, right? That's amazing. That is so amazing. That gives you so much power and so much control over your future, because the future will be defined by the people who own their audiences and own their IP. Otherwise, you're just basically creating content, as a fee for service. So you want to do this. You want to own your audience, and you need to work out how to do that, including in your existing deals. How to create digital-first formats. There are ways to create content that works in a digital environment that can go back to linear. And you can use your linear or other content types to reimagine how things would work in a digital environment, which I'll talk about, and how to generate new revenue. So again, off the platform. And of course, how to collaborate with creators, because creators are one of the most extraordinary catalysts for change. If you find the right partnership with the creator and how to work with them, you can rapidly accelerate what you're doing and how. So, has anyone ever heard of ACTF? Put your hand up. Cool. Has anyone ever heard of Twisted Lunchbox? Put your hand up. A little bit more, but I would have expected more. That's all right. So, what I'm going to talk about here, ACTF is the Australian Children's Television Foundation. So imagine them like an angel investor, government funded. They'll invest in kids' content to help get it going, and they also have a distribution arm. So they have a lot of content, some of it really, really old, and they weren't really quite sure of the value or how they could work with it and how that might impact change, but they knew they needed to connect with their audiences. So we went into their business, we did an audit and strategy of their business, and identified what formats to create. We rebranded because no one knew who ACTF was or cared, because that's not the target audience, it's kids, and created the brand Twisted Lunchbox. And then we managed that page end to end, right? The results of that, within 6 months, within the last 6 months, we moved them from 567,000 views a month to 125.6 million, technically, views a month. Okay? Those views aren't from India, they're not from Pakistan. Those views, as you can see in the bottom one there, for the US, they went from 139,000 views a month to 60 million US views a month. So from 150,000 roughly unique viewers to 12 million. You can imagine how this can transform a business's capabilities, right? They're growing 10 times faster than the traditional broadcaster in this space. They are now the number one in the world in their category, which is scripted kids content, right? So kids content notorious for nursery rhymes, no animation, right? This is just purely scripted kids content, right? They're bigger than Disney in this space for this type of channel. This is completely organic with no paid media. How you can utilize this to test your ideas, to test your concepts, to understand where your content could be sold, to understand what content to invest in and to develop, right? You know, it's really important and it's extremely powerful. This will transform your business. They could grow their business 10x if they wanted to. They don't actually have permission to do certain things. There's certain things they can't do, but they can now use this channel to help transform the local Australian kids industry in Australia. Bondi Rescue. Who's heard of Bondi Rescue? Sweet. Okay, so Bondi Rescue is a really interesting IP, right? It's sort of been going for 15 years. When we came across it, so around about 2020, the show was sunsetting, so it wasn't being made anymore. We got the global rights to that show, and we reimagined that back catalogue of about 200 episodes. So it was made for TV. Those TV episodes in their format didn't work so well on YouTube. So we studied the algorithm and understood what the audience wanted, and then we reimagined that content for that environment. And from those 200 episodes, we've now created over 3,500 videos and grown it from 15 million views in total to over 3.5 billion views. Right? Off the back of that, that show is now, well, very successful. The first year, we focused on scaling the audience through effective content strategy. The second year, we expanded that audience and diversified the revenue. The third year, we stabilized those revenue streams and trialed new business models. Now, what's interesting about this is the more rights you have, the more able you are to bring about change. If you're limited in what you can do with that content, you can't necessarily extract the value that you require. If you're limited within the rights and scope of how you can exploit that, you've only got AVOD or AVOD and TVOD or not SVOD or whatever else, you're also limited because you can't exploit it the way you need to in order to give the audience what they want, when they want it, where they want it. But if you can do that, and you do have that freedom, you can do extraordinary things. So off the back of that, that show was recommissioned for 3 new seasons. And so you can imagine the value that's been generated. And so we've driven also 6 new revenue streams that didn't exist before for this IP. And it's now the #1 brand in its category. So for all of you who have a back catalogue, who own your content, there are completely different ways to use that content, to use that catalogue to cost effectively build an audience, right? You're like, where do I start? How do I do that? There are ways to do that. Maybe you don't have enough. You need to partner with other people, who have similar content types, and obviously you need the right operational approach, but you can do something. Okay, Outback Boys. So anyone heard of Black As? Cool, some nods and hands. Great, good start. They made 3 hours and 40 minutes of content in 2014, 15, 16 for TV. It was never made again. Off the back of this, they put everything onto social media, onto YouTube and Facebook, and that's it. We came across that around 2021. We thought we could do something with it. We got the global rights to that show. We then, at the time, it was getting 300,000 views a month. We then reimagined, it was already on YouTube and Facebook. We re-edited everything and then managed the pages end to end. We got 60 million views in 3 months. That data we used to get the show recommissioned. We then executive produced and directed that show using the data and insight that we'd learnt in this environment. We generated 1 billion views for that. And then we also identified as part of this, Black As doesn't really work, the format doesn't work. We adjusted the format, changed the show type, and brought in a new brand, right? So to clarify a very different change in approach, more of a creator approach. And now you have the world's biggest outdoor creator. Outdoor Boys wanted to come over and collaborate, right? That guy, I can't say how much he generates, but it's a very large sum of money per video, enough to buy a house. Seriously. So, off the back of that, huge viewership, huge engagement, no longer made to being recommissioned, 5 new revenue streams. It is the #1 First Nations brand in our country. You guys have extraordinary access and understanding and connection to your culture. You guys have amazing opportunities because only you know how to tell those stories. And on YouTube or other platforms, no one's going to get in the way of how you want to tell that story, which means you might get better access, better engagement, and better connection to your audience. Sticky lollies, I'll go quickly. Really interesting little lolly company. Who's head of Sticky Lollies? Anyone? Cool, some people. All right. It's all right, ladies, you'll get there. Check it out. It's good. These guys, the little lolly company, they almost went bankrupt because of COVID, because they do artisanal lollies, right? In their shop, no one could come in. They decided to try Facebook live streams. It was going okay. When we found them, they were getting about 1.5 to 1.6 million views a month, but we knew what we needed to do. So we changed everything from their internet speech, to their cameras, to their mics, to their formats, to, we edited every single video. We ran the page end to end. The results, we moved them from ranked 1,703 in the world in the food and drink category on Facebook to number 1 in the world within 12 months with no paid media. They were the number 1 food and drink brand in the world and top 5 brands in the world for one of those months. There was Red Bull, TikTok, and Sticky Lollies, which was very exciting, right? Off the back of that, they sold their lollies out in 40 minutes and 10x'd the value of their business in 12 months. Now, they're a lolly company that makes videos. What they really need to be is a video company that makes lollies. And you guys all have that power and capability, right? So there's different ways of thinking about this, the value that you can generate with your skills. That's just to prove I'm not lying. That's tubular stats there. I don't know if you can see it, but just so you know, it's very much true. Last bit here is talking about collaborating with creators. So creators are really interesting people, very strange to work with sometimes. They do speak a different language and how they do contracts, how they do terms, how they create. But they're very cost, time, and resource effective. They have huge audiences, and they can rapidly accelerate the growth of the things that you might do in this space. Some simple examples that we've done. The Try Guys, they wanted to expand off YouTube into the traditional space. So we negotiated a deal with them. And Samsung, off the back of that, they're in 70 million new homes and have a whole new revenue stream. Snap Accelerator, I've already talked about that. We can apply those insights on how you work with creators in the traditional or legacy media space. The same approach applies. It's just a slightly different way of going about it. Sony Music, they were really struggling with revenue, in streaming revenue. They were, losing a lot of revenue about a decade ago. I didn't know how to adapt to this new environment. So we rolled all of their creators across APAC into our network, and we built a YouTube-first music label. We trained their artists on how to create content. We integrated creators into their video clips, and we grew that business 400% in 12 months, and then rolled that whole network into Vivo. Right? So the creators are the ones that really helped galvanize that change, as much as well as our training and strategy. BBC Studios, we relaunched Top Gear with How Ridiculous, and a bunch of other ones. I won't talk about that, we're going to run out of time. But that was one of the most successful globally for the BBC when they relaunched with the new faces of Top Gear. So we've been doing this. This was a decade ago we did this stuff, right? It's been in existence for a long time. Finally, in order to think differently about creators, which I mentioned earlier, Jessa. He is the #1 basketball creator in the world. Top right there, the NBA has 73 channels. Jessa has 3. NBA in the last 12 months uploaded 44,500 videos. Jessa uploaded 147. Engagement, 55 million for NBA, 75.4 for Jessa, and followers, you can see Jessa is bigger. He has bigger viewership. This is every single NBA team and the master brand rolled in together, and Jessa is still bigger. You want to pay the NBA to do a brand deal or do some sort of engagement? Good luck. You want to work with Jessa? It's pretty easy. Well, not that easy, but you get the gist. So these are really important people to use in order to how to build what happens next. I hope that was informative for you. I hope that helped you think a little bit differently about how and what you can do in the space, and I will end that there.
Thank you, that's great. Come join us again. That was brilliant, Steve. I feel like we had a digital masterclass in 20 minutes. It was incredible. I don't want to leave Nadia out of it, though. And I think we can agree that it's no longer a binary war between old school broadcast and digital. It's merged, collaboration is here, and it's all about finding, growing and redefining audiences. So at TVNZ, you're in the first year of a 5-year plan to go digital first.
Yeah, and in fact, I would love to say cool story, bro, but we've been doing it for a while. And what I mean by that is that in New Zealand, TVNZ On Demand, for example, launched 17 years ago. So that was a digital platform in which we housed, 300 odd programs and have slowly developed and iterated over time, incredible people doing incredible things to build out a new digital future for the business. The same can be said for Sky 3, our competitors in market, because we all realise and appreciate that we have to progress into the future. And that goes with online too, as well as all of the digital pieces. I think that coming back to today's themes, actually, that have been overwhelmingly clear to me and quite comforting, actually, is that despite the platform, audiences are first and foremost of everything we do, and actually learning and understanding what our audiences want and need should be at the forefront of our mind regardless of the platform. We should be platform agnostic. What I think that digital allows us to do, especially big tech, social platforms, is to test and learn, absolutely, and even we do that, which is really cool. But I think, as you said, TVNZ is in the midst of, actually, it's the second year, we're in the second year of a 5-year digital strategy. What the heck does that mean? That means we understand that we have to move from a broadcast-centric business into a fully fledged digital business, and that means audiences. So we are looking to double our audiences and triple our revenue. How am I doing on all the talking points, guys? Yeah, it's only been a few weeks, just joking. But it's pretty impressive, right? I've been in a lot of businesses that talk a big game on strategy, talk a big game on priorities, and it's very difficult to ship big strategic priorities that absolutely prepare the business for the future. So to see it in action, to see some of this work shipped, it's incredible. It puts audiences at the forefront. So digital, great digital environment, great user experience, incredible data and analytics, and truly measuring data and people who are watching, not just one person through a profile, but everybody on the couch. It's an amazing journey to be part of.
Absolutely, it's greenfields.
It is. It actually is, because it will allow us actually, once all of this is out there, so early next year or so, TVNZ will be launching its TVNZ Plus re-platform, and that will allow us to actually operate more as a digi-first or big tech platform, if that's how you want to liken it. So, everything from personalisation to actually housing and promoting content that is of different formats. Like, why wouldn't we? We should. And so right now, experimenting in big tech land is sort of the right way to go about it, to see what works, what doesn't.
And without you, a lot of people in this room, or organisations like TVNZ, you wouldn't have the content and the rights. I mean, I think it's such an extraordinary thing in your country that you're able to sort of also help fund this content. And obviously you have that that regional need, but it's sort of empowered a lot of people in this room to do very different things, which is not normal in other countries.
Definitely. And I think with big technology companies, it is, and you will have heard this from many big media companies in New Zealand, is that it's not an even playing field. We employ, as a business, more than 500 New Zealanders or people living in New Zealand. We pay tax, we deliver for the country, right? Big tech, no, it doesn't happen. So employ very few number of people, don't contribute in a way that is truly meaningful, unlike other big media companies. And I think that's a really important point, because we are bound by regulation and rules, and we have to abide by, as Cam said earlier, we have a TVNZ Act. We have to deliver for this nation, and that's really important to us, absolutely. It's pivotal to the fabric of our country, but equally, it's not necessarily a safe environment out there on those big tech platforms.
And on that, I'm not going to talk about quotas yet, but I don't think we're going to have time. But in Australia...
We all agreed that we needed like 3 hours for this, and probably 2 bottles of wine.
In Australia, we are days, weeks off implementing a new regime that will be banning quite a lot of tech platforms for a very significant part of the population, the under 16s. You're both coming at this from different perspectives, but what does a piece of regulation like that, how does that affect your businesses?
Well, we had this conversation slightly earlier, because Steve has a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Yep.
So I probably felt like him about 10 years ago. So I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I have completely changed the way I think about accessibility for young kids. This is, you may as well be giving my 10-year-old like a pack of cigs, right, with a phone. And what I mean by that is that, we really need to be very, very careful about exposing young people to content that is unvetted, unchecked, that you're not necessarily even dealing with a human. I think that, as far as TVNZ is concerned, every single thing that we put onto our platforms, whether it be broadcast or any of our channels right through to TVNZ Plus or our website, we are very considered and deliberate. We have extraordinary commissioners in this room. You can go and see them tomorrow. And we have incredible platform experts who choose and curate everything we do. But it really is vital to point out that it is a safe environment. You can watch a news item about a political person in America being shot and it be a safe, impartial, news report. I can jump on TikTok and watch him being shot through the neck, within 30 seconds. That is not, to me, a safe environment, and I think that's something that really does set New Zealand media apart from big tech, and I'm very supportive, but I know that the company, or TVNZ as an organisation, wants our young tamariki and rangatahi to be absolutely safe, and we want to provide them kick-ass content that is inspiring and ambitious and gets them excited about living here in Aotearoa.
So I guess I think about it a little bit differently. First of all, I guess as a business we're very diversified, so directly to us we're not too affected. But also I think it's so important for your kids to have access to things that connect with them. And you can't necessarily always get that from one environment. I think on YouTube it also gives your kids a tool or a capability to build their own business, to want to be aware of the world and how to exist in this world. I think that's really important to remove any dangerous content for sure. I think the outright ban is not a good idea, but I think obviously protecting them from content that isn't good for them is a good thing. But I mean, you want to also, I guess the challenge is like have your kids engage with content that's relevant to your world, to your culture, to your values. And so it's very hard to do that purely through a broadcaster, and your kid's going to go wherever the hell they want to go in order to get the content they want to engage with that means something to them, that connects with them. And so, media is a huge part of your identity. When you think about today, how many of us refer to Back to the Future or Teen Wolf or other things, or the Goonies, or the things that define who we are, they are defining moments in our lives, right? And that's made us, probably a lot of people, the reason why you're in this room today is because of your connection to media. So by taking that away, or by taking away your child's ability to express themselves in a safe environment, I think you're also removing opportunity, and you're also removing ways for them to think differently, to think more broadly, and not be too isolated in the way that they see the world. So I think there should be a happy medium. I think outright blocking is not a good idea. But what is the perfect solution? I can't answer that.
And it seems like it's trial and error, like
Yeah.
everything in the digital realm.
Like Jessa wouldn't exist if it was banned in his country. He wouldn't exist. Mr. Beast wouldn't exist if it was banned in his country. They're both, he's built a multi-billion-dollar business. It just wouldn't exist. Mark Rober wouldn't exist. A lot of things wouldn't exist if you did this. And so in many ways, you're also removing opportunity.
But equally, a lot of things do exist because Facebook allows it to be there, So, I mean, you can argue it both ways.
I think YouTube's the most safe. Facebook less so, TikTok less so, Snapchat less so. But YouTube is a very different story.
We've been graced with all these amazing new technologies and platforms and tools and data that allows us to cut through, but we still get assailed by the same issues that we've always had, monetization and discoverability. From both your perspectives, how are we moving forward on that?
Well, as I spoke to earlier, we are on an enormous journey to ensure that we have a very, very strong future. And that absolutely is about ensuring we can effectively measure our audience, deliver advertising against that for our clients, but also diversify our revenue streams. And you've seen all media companies do this. And so we announced earlier this year, which is so incredible because, by the way, it was just like a few weeks before I started, and then I found out that the kick-ass team at TVNZ had secured the rights to FIFA, the FIFA World Cup, and I was like, awesome, this
Pretty
is
cool.
incredible. I know, right? And as part of that, we will be launching a pay proposition. So that's really unique for our business. We know that it's a saturated market from a subscription point of view, but what are the moments that New Zealanders will want to engage with? We've also experienced huge boost in audience with things like cricket and whatnot. I do think we need to look at other opportunities regarding monetisation. People often think that media is in decline. I have been in media myself for 25 years. I've never seen a more engaged and strong audience. So every single day, 1 million people consume One News at 6. 1 million people, and that's across platforms. That's incredible. And yet we somehow say that, there's a lack of trust in news, for example. But not really, because people are coming to view it. Equally for some of our most incredible programs, Country Calendar, still here, still legendary and still remarkable. Steve's got it on his watch list because I was like, shit, have you seen this? It's gangster. You need to get it bloody on your... It's still so bloody good, right? And I think one thing that we don't do as well as we could be doing is probably just taking a leaf from your book. What is the ecosystem and how do we absolutely rinse that for ourselves and for all of our, the brands that we're creating or the content that we're creating? How do we look at every tiny little inch of what that environment is and really sort of positioning it in a way that has lots of monetary value, or a monetary value attached to it. And it's not sometimes money either, right? It could be the halo effect, driving into new content. It could be investment in a new project. I saw where Dan is in the studio, one of the producers of Tina, which is the most amazing film, and I know that was a small budget. Hi, Dan. And, the reality is, look at that incredible slingshot now. Well, this will probably be the last time we ever see him. He'll be like winning an Oscar and then living in America, right? No, but it's just like, it's that kind of stuff that really kind of drives and develops and grows New Zealand as a global brand as well. So I've gone off piste a bit, but you get what I mean.
So going back to the question about awareness and revenue, domestically it makes absolute sense to partner with TVNZ because you're definitely one of the best at driving awareness in this country, right? But also you have the rest of the world that you can engage with now, on YouTube. So you want to be thinking in parallel with these two things. You also want to be imagining that you guys all have these brilliant ideas, these amazing capabilities, and essentially, by going through broadcasters only, you're running a B2B business. But these days, the content and the creator economy is a B2C business, right? You want to be going directly to your customer, directly to consumer, directly to that audience. And so if you've got a great idea and you want to get it out there and you're waiting with a piece of paper, to stand in line for a meeting with somebody, to say, hey, this is a great idea, and all the stepping stones and all the processes to get there take so long, versus you can release one video and go from one to many people. That could be 100, it could be 1,000, it could be 10,000, it could be 1 million per video, who knows? But you're going to get a much better understanding of what works, what doesn't, and why, and how to rapidly scale and adjust your strategy in order to find what the successful outcome is, what character works, what genre works, what location works. And then the second part is, that's one aspect of it, but there's many more we can go into, but not enough time, is revenue. The future of this space, as you know, your budgets are much lower than what they were. It's much harder to grab money from these different places because brands aren't spending their monies on broadcast networks as much as they were. They moved more to digital first direct because they're getting a more measurable return on investment. And so, therefore, you have to think about how else to generate revenue. It can't just be from funding. What else can you do? What else can you pull out of the values that you've created, other than just ad revenue on these platforms?
I've got a question, which is, we recently heard a statistic, which is that 65% of the content viewed on YouTube is consumed by only 25% of its audience. What would you say to that? That's a really interesting stat. Is that just all like Trump followers or what?
I would say that's someone who probably doesn't have access to great data.
Not me.
No, I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying wherever it came from.
Burn.
You have great data. You've in this. Sorry, that wasn't meant to be directed at you. I just meant whoever created that quote.
I was about to say this was collaboration in action.
Yeah.
French media intelligence.
Cool. I'll be looking into who funded that report, and then to understand what their objective is and where that information comes from.
We'll do this panel next year.
Great.
Yeah? Okay, we'll break it down.
This conference is very much themed around solutions because we're moving forward through issues. It strikes me that what you're bringing to the world is an entrepreneurial vision of how to shake up a traditional broadcasting industry. How do we get that mindset infused in the industry in perpetuity? Great
question. So, on the strategic advisory side of our business, we do a lot of workshops with many different organizations all around the world. And one of the biggest ways to bring about this change is through culture, right? And perception of what's right or what's wrong, and it has to come from the top. So I don't know how big your organizations are in this room, but if you're a larger organization, you need to work out how to influence the person who makes those decisions to bring them into that decision-making process. So often in a workshop environment, we know that one person doesn't really believe in it. And they don't believe in it because they don't understand it. That's why, because they're not educated, and so they're afraid to make decisions. They're afraid to say the wrong thing or sound stupid. So you want to find that person who does not understand, who's afraid, and bring them deep into the conversation, bring them into that workshop, educate them, inform them, inspire them, because they'll become the catalyst for change. They'll be the person who wants to make a difference, and that's how you do it. And if you're an individual, then it's you. You have to make that change, and you have to believe that this is possible. You have to educate yourself, because that is the only way you're going to go about this. And all that information is there and accessible for you to do.
And Nadia, you're very much the outlier in your organisation in terms of being the
newbie.
changeling. Yeah.
Oh, the changeling. Well, I would actually just say that New Zealand is already there. Everything from Halter to Peter Beck and Rocket Lab, we're pretty amazing, in terms of what we do and how we operate as entrepreneurs. And I think that TVNZ certainly, what attracted me to working for this organisation is its belief in the future, and it is leading that pathway. And I truly believe that it is world-class and setting a new standard for broadcasting. And when I say broadcasting, I mean, video content businesses in the traditional sense. It is absolutely evolving. That hurts. I wrote down a note earlier, which was, we're changing shape. Someone said it earlier. We're changing shape at the moment, which was a very good point. The media industry is going through enormous change, which hurts, and it's devastating to lose people from the business and contract, but we are changing shape. So what does that look like? It means becoming smaller and doing things in different ways, but I think that makes us more creative. The most creative I've ever been was when I've had absolutely no budget, but you've got to make it happen, and I think that that's something that we really need to think about.
Just a closing comment for me is, New Zealanders, like Australians, we share, the underdog or, punching above your weight, right? New Zealanders are so exceptional at that. Look at your football team. They're amazing humans.
They are.
So scary to
really
look
amazing.
at. But I wish I was one of them.
And our NRL team's good too.
Yes. Well, you guys kick ass in all sports. But the point is, going alone is very difficult, but the only way you're really going to succeed is by galvanizing change together, by unifying in how you're going to approach. You're very good at pulling together as a team. You're very good as a country, at unifying your beliefs, and your connection to culture is extraordinary. It's probably the best in the world, really. So if you want to win in this space, you need to pull together. You need to help each other out, because you're not competing with each other. You're competing with the world, and so that is the way that you will win, and I definitely believe a country like this and a culture like this can do that.
And that is a beautiful way, a beautiful sentiment to end this session on and this day. Thank you both very much for your insights and wisdom, and I feel like the future of media is bright and very safe in your hands. Thank you.